Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast presented by our good friends over at ScentLock. Guys, this week I am joined by Isaac Kent of Midwest Madness. Isaac and his two brothers started Midwest Madness, and we kind of talk about why they started it and how they got to where they're at. But we also talk about kind of the whole premise behind this podcast, and that's to hunt, to grow, and inspire. We talk about the importance of all three, how to do so, and just some things to know along the way, some things to keep in mind as you go through your journey of being an outdoorsman. We also talk about some very unconventional deer hunting methods that have proven themselves over time. Some things that you hear and you're like, why would you ever do that? But then you kill a massive whitetail doing it, and it's something you now implement all the time. So, guys, it's a fun episode. It's an informative episode, and I hope that you will maybe try and implement some of these unconventional whitetail methods this fall, because they have proven themselves to be very successful. But, guys, I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Guys, I'm an arrow junkie. I love arrows, and I have found a fondness for deer crossing archery. Everybody makes a good arrow. I'm not saying that anybody out there makes a bad arrow, but what really sets deer crossing archery apart is when I call them, I'm going to get the owner on the phone. I'm going to get the guy that's building my arrows on the phone, and they're going to walk me through a complete custom build. They're not shipping me a box of arrows that they ship out to everybody. I'm going to pick my knot colors, my fletching colors, my wrap colors, the fletching configuration I want on the arrows. Not only that, I'm going to walk him through my setup. I'm going to walk him through what I'm looking to get out of the setup. I'm going to tell him total arrow length I want to be hitting, total arrow weight I want to be hitting, total insert-outsert weight I want to be hitting, FOC, and he's going to custom build a set of arrows and send them to me. My arrows aren't going to be best for you. Your arrows aren't going to be best for me. We need custom arrows. Deer Crossing Archery builds those arrows custom for you, and they always perform. Their silencer shaft is my favorite arrow on planet Earth. I've shot 40-plus animals with that arrow. It always performs. It always blows through the animal. I always get great penetration. It's a micro-diameter shaft. They do have a full line of shafts. The new Rupture arrow is a phenomenal arrow. I shot a deer with it this year in Missouri. I love their arrows. Guys, I would highly encourage you to check out Deer Crossing Archery, because you don't have to go to a box store and buy a set of arrows that are just made from the factory. You can get arrows custom made for you that are going to work best for you and your setup. Guys, use code HUNTING101 to get a discount at Deer Crossing Archery. I would highly encourage you to check them out. They are phenomenal. All right, Isaac. So first off, where are you at in the world right now?
Well, I am currently in Bozeman, Montana, one of the greatest places in the West, actually.
Yeah? Is it? Why
That's
so?
That's what they say anyway. Well, see, in Bozeman, for those of you who may not be familiar with Bozeman, there's abundant fly fishing, world-class trout rivers. We've got some pretty solid elk hunting right by where I live at. And, of course, there's always some pretty good deer hunting within an hour or so drive. So it's pretty much got everything a sportsman could want. So that's why I like it.
Yeah, you're missing one crucial part about Bozeman that makes it great, and that's Schnee's boots.
That's true. They are pretty sweet.
Yeah, that I've always wanted to go. I've only actually been to Montana once, and I spent about a week on Blacktail Mountain, which was incredible. Just a gorgeous place to be. But I've always wanted to make it to Bozeman just to visit that store, because I've just been told it's just an incredibly cool place. So that is on my list to go there just to visit, if nothing else, just to visit Schnee's and see the boots, man.
Dude, it's awesome. That store is incredible. And the trophy room in there and all the antique stuff that's in there. Yeah, super cool place, one of a kind for sure.
So when do your seasons start opening up?
Well, so Pronghorn has already been open since August 15th. Unfortunately, I've had to work, so I haven't been able to get out and chase them too much, but I'm planning on getting out hopefully this weekend. This weekend, elk season and deer season open up. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm not going elk hunting this weekend, though. I've got the boys coming up. They're going to film next weekend. So we're going to go on a big hunt next weekend. But yeah, it all opens up this weekend. It's going to be awesome.
Well, we have to have a talk here real quick. Just you and I. You have a tag in your pocket. You have a day off from work and you're sitting on a podcast with me? What the heck are you doing? Why are you not chasing antelope right now?
Yeah, obligations, and I wanted to come join you on the pod, so it's a good thing. I'll go chase those antelope this afternoon. Most of the time in the morning, anyway, they give me the slip, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, I got you. What's your attack on antelope? Are you a waterhole guy? Are you a spot and stalk guy? Decoy? How do you hunt the antelope there?
I'm a straight up spot and stalk guy. Decoy maybe if possible, but I just love spotting and stalking them, especially in some of the sage flats around here. Kind of hard in some of the areas that I hunt in. However, there's a lot of bigger bucks, which I guess kind of correlates. It's a lot flatter, but some of the bucks get pretty big, so it makes for a pretty fun challenge. Sneaking and using the terrain to your advantage. But yeah, totally spot and stalk, and it's a great way to practice your skills.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been told, which we have antelope here in western Kansas. The success rate's like 4% with a bow. I mean, it's incredibly low. But I've been told, I mean, if you can spot and stalk antelope, you can spot and stalk anything. Like, there's nothing you can't get close enough to kill if you can spot and stalk antelope. But I also think people way overcomplicate it sometimes, like you said.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, sometimes people overcomplicate it when in all reality, if they were to strap a decoy to the front of their bow, it would help them out tremendously. Or if they would, use cattle ranches to their advantage, it would help them out tremendously. So, I think while it sounds cool to say, hey, I'm 100% spot and stalk, when people start out antelope hunting, and not to cheat or anything, is not what I'm saying, but make it as easy on yourself as possible. Like, if you've got a rancher that's got cows, that you can use cows to get closer, I mean, use that to your advantage. If you've got watering holes, use that. If you've got, you name it, bow mounted decoys or cow decoys, whatever, use those things to your advantage, because sometimes spotting and stalking them is very difficult, and you'll go years without getting a shot opportunity. So I just tell people, when you start, like, yeah, that's a really cool goal to get to, but like when you start, use everything to your advantage, man. Start learning the animal, start learning, how to get in close, what they like, what they don't like, and use some of those advantages without trying to overcomplicate it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely like, I mean, I've been hunting my whole life, so I always try to take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, for newer beginner people, absolutely don't try to jump right on the struggle bus right away. Like, it's you're definitely going to up your odds. I even know people who use cow decoys, not even antelope decoy. If you're on an area with cattle, they have huge cutouts. They're like the size of a cow, so you can move a little bit easier behind them. And yeah, anyway, definitely use the tools to have success if you can.
So we did get ahead of ourselves, because I do want to ask you to give an introduction kind of to Midwest Madness and how you guys started, where the inspiration came from, how it came about. Tell me about Midwest Madness.
Sure. So Midwest Madness, man, it's been since 2014. So I was a junior in high school, and man, I was just eaten up with watching the Outdoor Channel and watching the few YouTube channels that were kind of prominent at that time. And I just really wanted to film my experiences. So Midwest Madness is myself and my two brothers, Adam and Luke, and our cameraman, Chase. And we've had basically a lot of really funny experiences in the outdoors that I thought this would just be like, if this was on camera, it would be the best content ever. And so we just started filming, and Luke was a film student all through high school and then into college. So he was always carrying a camera around. And, we've just wanted to share a unique experience of three brothers in the outdoors hunting, on a budget. Like I said, in high school and college, we had next to no money. So we were, scrounging. Definitely not the lone wolf tree stand guys with the brand new Matthews every year. We're ground hunting with, whatever we could. So it was just a unique perspective, and I always wanted to share that with people. So, here we are in 2023. We really didn't hit it hard. We just didn't really know what we were doing until about 2019. And so for about the last 4 years, we've been kind of taking it pretty serious. Since, obviously 2014 was just kind of a learn trial by fire. But yeah, it's been a fun ride, and that's kind of been my inspiration, just sharing a unique perspective of myself and my brothers, and anything that you can hunt, fish, catch, we've tried to record.
So who was it? You said the YouTube stars at the time or whatever. Who was your inspiration? Who were you watching? Who made you want to do it?
Man, my number one inspiration was Heartland Bowhunter. I wanted to be like them so
Yeah.
bad. That was when, they were first kind of breaking onto the scene really big. And, I just watched them, and the cinematic quality was just so much different than, what people were producing at that time. And I just really, really enjoyed watching them. I mean, gosh, those guys always, Michael Waddell, I think he's had kind of that unique perspective, as well in the hunting space where, he's been allowed to be himself and be funny. And, so I just always grew up watching those guys. But then I got to give a shout out to the person who really got me into it. And that would be, David Blanton from Realtree. That guy, I grew up watching all of the Realtree DVDs. Every Saturday morning on ESPN, I was watching, Realtree Outdoors or Realtree Road Trips or whatever. And yeah, David Blanton got me into it, got me turned on to bear archery actually. So I just wanted to, kind of be like those guys and emulate them. And, yeah, that was kind of my inspiration.
David Blanton was the first person that I ever had on the show that I was truly like a little bit starstruck.
Yeah.
And for that reason, because David was not only big when I was in college, but when I was a kid, dude. I mean, I remember watching David on stinking VHR, and having to rewind it and burning out the tapes. Like, I remember watching David, being a little kid thinking, dude, I wish I could hunt like he does all the time. And so, and obviously that was when he was with Bear, but to get him on the show and have a conversation with him, he's as real as they come. He is as true to himself, and what you see on TV with David or in magazines is what you get in person. He is a genuinely incredibly good guy. And so, yeah, Waddell, man, he's got his niche just for being a stupid redneck, but yeah, he's a fun guy for sure, dude. He is a riot. I'll tell you that. So where's the story? How did this all play out? Because you are in Montana. Your brothers are in Kentucky, right?
Yes, that's right. So,
Did you move or did they move?
I moved. So I'm from Kentucky. And yeah, I moved out to Montana
That's
in
what's wrong
2020.
with you.
Yeah, that's it, man.
What a hunting opportunity? You wanted to be in the West?
Well,
I say West.
So it's funny.
It's
right.
Midwest.
Right. So it was COVID, right? So it was crazy times. And my wife was freshly graduated from college. I was still in college at the time. And she was trying to get a job somewhere, and one day I'm sitting in the living room, and she's like, "Hey, Montana State just called. Would you want to move to Montana?" And I was like, "Absolutely, sign me up!" Like, that's the sportsman's paradise,
Roll out.
So yeah, and 3 weeks later, here we were in Montana. So it was pretty crazy.
I was really hoping you were going to be like, bro, it was COVID. I was sitting at home. I was bored. I'm like, let's move to Montana. Like, and then you just pack up and move just because
It
you're
didn't take
bored.
much convincing. Yeah.
I'll tell you that, dude, because I'm from Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. Deer are not big. We did not have. It's an outdoorsman's paradise. Don't get me wrong. I love it because there's canoeing and rock climbing and bear hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, duck hunting. I mean, it's incredibly fun place to live. But the deer hunting was not great. And so when I moved to Kansas, it was like a boy woke up in a new deer hunting world. Like, I remember the first time I sat in Kansas, I was with a buddy on his property, and like a 140 walks out, and I go to pick up my bow. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm gonna just plug this deer with an arrow." What do you mean? What am I doing? He was like, "Dude, that's not a shooter here." And I was like, "Yeah, it is, bro." Because like, I mean, I'd never seen deer like that before. The biggest deer I'd ever shot in my life was 127. And
Wow.
that was big for Arkansas. And so I was just like, I like woke up in a whole new world almost. And so trust me, dude, I get what you mean by just taking opportunities to further yourself as a hunter for sure.
Oh yeah.
I want to go back. You mentioned because Heartland Bowhunter, dude, and still they have phenomenal content, but everybody has phenomenal content now. And mainly that's just because a stinking iPhone can take really good footage now. But and I would say it was almost when you were about getting started, 2018, 2019, maybe a little sooner than that, 16, 17. Back in that time, producing good, high quality content of just like inspirational type, cool music playing, dudes walking through a field, hanging cameras, like that was it. Like that's how you got in the industry. If you were producing good content, just short little promos, of that was it. That was your in. And I feel like now with the change in technology, and I could be wrong, but I've had this conversation with plenty of big time marketing directors in the outdoor industry. That's not really what companies want anymore, because again, anybody can take an incredible photo on an iPhone now. Anybody can take incredibly good looking crisp videos on an iPhone now. But what is not being put out is what I think you have found to be successful as well, is more informational type stuff. More stuff on, how to perform back tension correctly, how to tune a bow, that's what I have found to now be the what is being successful on social media. Did you notice that, or did you just kind of fall into that niche of being informative and then it, turns
Well,
out
no. So
successful?
I've always been kind of a teacher, if you will. And so I'm the oldest of five kids, first of all, so that probably gives me a pretty good head start. But yeah, man, I always wanted to kind of teach, and I was listening to, back then, like you were saying, that 2018, 2019 time frame. I was listening to Gary V, and he was explaining about um, giving value to your content and not just producing things for yourself, right? Giving value to the end user. And so I was thinking, and I'm like, you know what? Like, it's important to me to share what someone taught me back in the day and share that with the new generation of hunters, with these new generation of kids, because there's so many people on the internet consuming. Like, I just want to put out something that's useful to people, that I'm able to, help further our sport ultimately, because someone out there taught me, and not everyone has that example. And so I just wanted to put it out there in the world and maybe help someone who is getting into it for the first time.
Absolutely, dude. And so I saw a video one time, and it was Cameron Haynes, and he was talking about how anybody can get sponsorships these days because, again, of just how high quality this can take pictures of. So it's like anybody can snap a photo and tag said company. He's like, and I promise you, if you tag Under Armour back to back to back to back in good looking, high quality, clean, ethical photos, they'll notice. or bear or scent lock or you name it. If you just start taking good, high quality, clean photos, snap, post it, and tag them, they'll notice that. Whereas used to, you had to have a camera. You had to be a camera guy. You had to know how to take a photo. Well, this has made it to where everybody can do that. And so I remember seeing that from Cameron and thinking, like, you're right. Like that, the value of what content used to be is no longer what the value of content used to be, because anybody and everybody can do that. And that was almost about the time, I'd say 5 years ago, that conversations had began with Bear about starting more of an informational, inspirational type podcast. And I was just like, yes, 100%. Like, I'm done with trying to put out crazy cool content where people are like, oh, this guy, man, he's living the dream out there chasing elk and killing bears. Like, I'm kind of done with that. Like, it's not fun for me. Because at that time in 2017, 2016, I was filming a TV show for Mossy Oak. And so that was my life, like trying to produce good quality content where people are like, oh, look at that, dude. Look at the way the bull's bugling on the side of the mountain. And I was just kind of done with that. Like, because again, it's exactly what you said. You're not offering anything of value to the viewer. Like, to get them to go, oh man, that guy's lucky, dude. Look at how he's living the dream. That doesn't help them at all. It might inspire them to want to try, but it doesn't help them obtain any kind of goal. It doesn't push them to try anything new. It doesn't help them further along in their journey. And so these conversations with Bear started, and that's how the three kind of pillars of this podcast came about: hunt, grow, inspire. And so I just want to take a minute to talk about those three for a second, because I don't talk about them enough. Get out and hunt. Go enjoy nature. Try something new, whether it's a bear hunt, whether it's an elk hunt, whether it's an antelope hunt you've never antelope hunted, whether it's a whitetail hunt. It's incredible to me when guys are from out west and they're like, dude, I've always wanted to hunt whitetail. And I'm like, never hunted whitetail? Like the most common animal hunted in North America? Anyways, try something new. And even if it's not a new species, try ground hunting. You've always been a tree stand guy. Try ground hunting. Try spot and stalking whitetails. It's fun. You're going to blow a lot of deer out, but it's a lot of fun and you will learn stuff. Try hunting from a blind. Try hunting with a recurve if you've always been a compound guy. Try something new because you'll learn something new. Hunt. Grow as an outdoorsman. Be willing to learn new things. Be willing to say, man, I failed here, but I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to move on. Be willing to not be a cocky, arrogant prick when you do succeed and not think, man, I've got whitetails figured out, bro. I shot a 120 last year. Don't think that you've got it all figured out. Continue to learn, continue to grow as a sportsman, and then help others grow. There's a two-part to that pillar. Help others grow. Listen, you've got something to offer. I don't care if you just started hunting last year. You still know something more than the guy behind you. You always have something to pass on. You might think, Dylan, I just learned how to sight in a bow for the first time. That's great. Somebody doesn't know how to sight in a bow. So you've got something to offer. So not only continue to grow, but help others to grow, and then inspire other people. The way that you carry yourselves, the way that you talk about hunting, the way that you portray hunting on social media, the way that you articulate about hunting when you're talking to a non-hunter. We're not some bloodthirsty animals. Inspire somebody to try something new. Give them the sense that they can do it as well. Don't come off as though, and again, we're going back to the cocky, arrogant prick thing. Don't come off as a, man, dude, this took me a lifetime, but I've got it nailed down now. Don't come off that way. Come off as though, hey, this is available for anybody and everybody, and you can do it too. Inspire other people to try something new. Dude, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but back in the day, I never, from the TV show, from everything else I used to do, I never got emails about that. You know, it was never like a, holy crap, dude, I saw you go on an elk hunt, so I had to do it. And I went, and it was incredible. Never got that. But ever since I've taken this switch to help grow and inspire new hunters, dude, it almost makes me tear up when I get an email saying, hey, I finally tried whitetail hunting for the first time because I listened to your Deer 101 series that you did. And look at this doe I just shot. And I'm like, that right there almost gets me like, that's why I do what I do. Or, you know, I had a guy on last year. He sent me an email and said, "Hey, finally tried whitetail hunting. Thanks to you and other people who taught me and gave me the inspiration and knowledge to do it. Killed my first doe." And I'm like, "Dude, that's incredible." 9 months later, he's like, "Well, I just shot my first bull elk." And I'm like, "What?" Like, and he's just like moving along. And it's like, dude, this is why we do it. So, I don't know who that's for, but I hope that, whether you think I don't have anything to offer, you do. You know something more than the guy behind you. Even if you've never killed your first deer before, certainly you've messed up and you've learned something from that and you can help other people with. There have been times where I've had somebody sitting on the podcast across from me, and I think I don't have anything to offer this person. They're way more successful than I am. Michael Waddell or Zach Farrenball or you name it. But there were two people in particular that I remember this happening to. Zach Farrenball was one of them, and I said, I don't have any kind of tips I can share with Zach. I mean, he's brilliant. He kills everything. And I just shared a tip about putting a silver Sharpie mark halfway down the post of your single pin and giving yourself a second reference. And he was like mind blown. He was like, "Dude, why have I never done that before?" And I'm like, "Really? Like, well, cool." And so I gave him and he was ecstatic about it. Another one was a guy by the name of well, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't think I should. I will. Never mind. Bodie Gardner. He's not super well known. He's not famous, but he's killed an ungodly amount of deer, like above 200. He holds 2 world records, one for mule deer and velvet, and one for maybe he holds both non-typical and typical. I don't know. Anyways, the guy is incredibly successful, especially with mule deer. And I just thought, like, there's nothing I can tell this guy that he doesn't know. And I just share a tip with him about milkweed as a wind indicator. And he was like, "Dude, that's brilliant because it'll show you thermals as well." And I'm like, "Exactly." And he's like, "Dude, I never thought about that. That's a great tip." And I'm like, wow. Like, so don't ever think to yourself, I don't have anything to offer this person. This person, they need to hear what you have to say too. That's just my spiel. I don't give that kind of speech enough. So I figured we worked into it and it fit.
Yeah, that's great, man. And one thing I'll add to that is, that's why it's also great as a community of hunters that we talk to each other. And, if you meet somebody at the parking lot at, your local public land, like instead of just trying to beat them in the woods, go over and talk to them, and just make that relationship. We don't do that enough, I feel like. And, there's a lot of people that in this country that would like us to not hunt. And so we need to be able to band together as a group and, being able to talk about that, share common experiences. That's how you learn. And, like having 2 brothers, for instance, we each have a different approach to hunting deer or whatever. And then maybe mine doesn't work, but I try one of theirs and then, we have success. So like you said, you never know. Always be open to listen and learn and never be afraid to share what you know. And, by doing that, I think we can all learn and grow and be better.
And I truly don't get, I'll never understand the want or desire to hold on to information, like to bring all that in and learn as much as you can, but never share it. Giving information is completely free. Like, it doesn't cost you a dime. They're not magically going to take over and you don't get to hunt anymore because you shared this tip. Like, am I telling you to drop an exact location on Onyx of your hunt stands where you've got incredible buck show? No, that's not what I'm telling you to do. But I'm telling you to discreetly show your stands and say, this is why I hung my set here. This is showing me why I should hunt here. So if you have a familiar pinch point, if you have a similar pinch point on your property, this is how I set it up. I'm not telling you to drop a location and say, meet me there, Saturday morning, we're going to go kill deer. It's not what I'm telling you to do. But information is completely free to give out. It costs you nothing. In fact, it gives you back something because by helping create a new generation of hunters, you're protecting your rights to hunt. It's not just going to magically happen where if you share information, all of a sudden you don't get to hunt anymore and your properties are gone and your tags are gone. That's not how it works. Sharing information is completely free and it's beneficial to everyone.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally that. And the last thing that I'll tack onto that is, like, if you have the ability, try to take someone hunting. If there's a new hunter in your area or whatever, like, I had people that took me hunting as a kid that, my dad, he grew up hunting, and went hunting a few times. He was self-taught, right? And he taught me everything he knew. But then there was other people that I met that also took me hunting, also fostered my knowledge. So don't just keep that to yourself. If you have the opportunity, take a kid hunting, and you might create a hunter for life, and teach them that, and that's something they can always pass down.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Guys, I oftentimes say that I always have a binocular harness on my chest. What good is a binocular harness without a good set of binoculars? I am a sucker for fine Japanese glass. I love good optics. I love spending time behind it. It's just fun. It's fun to go out and look at stuff, but also good optics make spotting and looking through them a whole lot more enjoyable. Kowa Optics does it, and does it better than anyone else, in my opinion. They have some of the finest Japanese glass on planet Earth. It's all I've used for the past, 8 years or so. This right here, the Kowa 55, is one of the best products ever made in the history of the universe. It is the smallest, most compact scope you can get, but it still offers phenomenal glass. It's really hard to find a spotter that is this small, this light, this compact. You can throw it in your backpack. You can leave it in your truck. It's so small and so compact, but it still offers phenomenal glass. This is one of my favorite products ever. Guys, if you're in the market for new optics, I would highly encourage you to check out Kowa Optics, because they are, in my opinion, the best glass that you can buy. Go check them out. So, it is open season in Kentucky. Kentucky, they're a bunch of rednecks. They start hunting as early as they can, and they kill as much as they can and as long as they can. Matt Jennings already found success in Kentucky. Have your brothers killed anything in Kentucky yet?
Not yet. No, they haven't. They're getting ready. They're gearing up to go out. I want to say tonight or tomorrow night. And they're gonna be out hunting. We got access to a new farm that they're gonna be hunting on, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty sweet. They're gonna try probably some unconventional ground hunting tactics. If I had to guess, there's a lot of standing corn, so you can probably imagine we might do some little standing corn sets or whatever. But there's some good bucks out there, so it would not surprise me if they put a good one on the ground pretty soon.
Early season, dude, your unconventional ways can play dividends. If you're in a place where there's farmers, like, dude, I actually was kind of jokingly back and forth with the guy this morning. He was sharing trail camera pictures, and he said, if you want to know if farmers play a massive role in your deer herds, and he was showing like giant bucks. And I know that, like, he didn't just Photoshop like giant bucks with combines, 200 yards behind them. Another guy commented and said, dude, my biggest buck I've ever killed, there was a combine 100 yards behind the deer. And I commented and said, yeah, Bill Winke actually said that if he could drive a combine to his tree stand every time, he would. I say all that to say this. Sometimes early season, you can use farmers like crazy, because it gives those deer a sense of like peace. It also helps you cover up your scent. I mean, if they're smelling combine and farmer and, diesel or whatever, then it helps mask your scent. So I have literally before texted my farmers and said, hey, when are you cutting the Milo? Because I want to be hunting when you do. Hey, when are you cutting the beans? When are you cutting the corn? I want to be there when you do. I want to ride in with you. I've done that before. I want to stand on your tractor and just ride into the stand with you and drop me off when you drive by it. I'm not asking you to do any more work. I'm not asking you to go out of your way. I'm just your first loop by. I'll just jump off. And dude, some of those early season tactics, it sounds stupid, but sometimes that's the best way to kill a big deer in the early season.
That's it, man. And the thing is, like, if you're being unconventional and you're hitting those deer from different angles where they haven't been pressured from before, a lot of times, like, you have all the cards in your hand. Like, we hunt a lot of places like that. Like, like you said about the farmers and the combines, if I can be in the stand while the farmer's combining, like that's my favorite day to hunt, hands down. And, also things like using turn rows to your advantage where, these deer there might be a little turn row in this cornfield and that's their in and out access. And if you can tuck in there, you're going to no deer is going to expect you to be there. Or, we use sometimes in between cornfields, there'll be an irrigation ditch, using that irrigation ditch. And a lot of people don't realize too that like in the evening, the water in the irrigation ditch can pull your thermals down where it's cooler, can pull them down that ditch, and you can hide in that ditch virtually unseen with no cover. And in my experience, that's where, most of the big bucks are killed or seen or whatever is in those type of scenarios, because, the big bucks, they're not just walking the field edge at the, in the evening, just, haphazardly. They're going to be in those type of areas doing those type of things. And if you're able to hit them from an angle where they're not being pressured from, like the odds are in your favor.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And one of the most unconventional, stupid things I ever did to kill a deer, and it worked. I had a ground blind set up at my grandparents' place, and it wasn't working. I mean, deer were not cooperating. Well, my grandfather, what he would do is in the evenings he would go out and he would hit golf balls in the pasture, and he would take a bucket of corn when he would do that and dump it out for the deer, and then he would hit golf balls. Well, I just thought, I'm like, being a hunter at heart, I had told my grandpa, hey, I'm going to be hunting, so don't come out tonight. Don't come out there tonight. Well, that was the dinner bell for those deer. Like, that was what they were used to. So it was throwing the deer off completely. So I call my grandpa. He doesn't text. I call my grandpa from the stand. I'm like, or from the blind, I'm like, can you come put corn out and hit golf balls? And he was like, sure, I guess. So he drives out. He dumps the corn. My grandfather is hitting golf balls 50 yards in front of my blind. Like, I'm just watching Pops just smoking golf balls, dude, at 50 yards in front of me. And I'm like, this is stupid. This is retarded. And then I look over and there's deer right here 20 yards out my side window. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it worked. So he's sitting over here hitting golf balls and deer are starting to pile in 20 yards from me. So when he's 50 yards in front of me hitting balls, I literally shoot a deer 20 yards on this side of the window over here. So my grandpa hears me shooting, like stops and looks and like watches the deer run off. And I'm like, that was the stupidest thing ever, but it worked. Like, try stuff like that, guys. Don't overthink it. Simplify it. But this is going back to like helping you as outdoorsmen. Like, you might be thinking to yourself, you're like, man, I never thought about using a combine to my advantage. I never thought using so after that, I realized, I'm like, it's not even the fact that he's out there hitting golf balls. It's that they hear him drive the golf cart out, dump the corn, and drive off. So then I didn't even have to have him hitting balls. It was just, hey, Pops, drive out the golf cart, dump your corn, and then drive out. And it changed the way I hunted that property forever. I don't do it any longer. They actually excavated the woods behind it, and now it doesn't work anymore. But anyways, try unconventional things, guys. You'll be amazed at what works sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. You'll be surprised. I'll give you one quick unconventional tactic. Big shout out to Adam, my brother. So he has this tactic. This one time we were out in the woods and we found a deadhead, and this deer has had to be like 160, 170, huge deadhead, right, for the area that we're hunting. And so we got this deadhead and we got this idea, like, why don't we make a set of rattling antlers out of these guys? Because, you never see rattling antlers that big in a store or wherever. So we got this huge deadhead set and we cut the brow tines off and we made a rattling antler set out of them. Well, when we're in the woods and like rattling, I mean, he is banging these things together, jumping off trees, slamming through the leaves, like, it sounds like a full-on deer fight. And I cannot tell you the amount of bucks that have come on a dead sprint because it sounds so realistic. Like, it does. If you hit a little set of rattling antlers together, most of the time you're like, okay, this is kind of unconvincing. It doesn't sound like a knockdown drag out. But using that big set of antlers like that, we had so many deer that would come in on a string that just, they threw caution to the wind because it sounded so real. So, think out that's another great way of thinking outside the box that, has paid off for us plenty of times.
I actually was shared a tip about rattling in bucks the other day, and it actually made a lot of sense to me. You said you got to cut the brow tine off. And so if you've never used real rattling antlers, start using real rattling antlers. They sound a whole lot better than a bag or a black rack or whatever. But you got to cut the brow tine off because, dude, you'll catch a brow tine in the stinking hand and it'll hurt bad. So you cut the brow tine off, especially on a matching set, because when you hit, that's where your brow tines are going to be. When you're hitting the antlers, you're going to catch one to the hand. But this old boy, and he is a deer killing machine. He said, you know what I do is I get the same side. Most guys want opposite sides so they can bang them together frontwards or forwards, like, what makes sense, I guess. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And he's like, well, I get opposite sides, one a little bigger than the other. And I hold the bigger one in one hand, and then the littler one, remember, they're the same side. So I'm hitting it from the back, and I don't have to worry about brow tines. I don't have to worry about banging my hands together. I don't have to. And I was like, that's actually a pretty good tip. And so my rattling set for this year is two same sides, one a little bigger than the other, and didn't have to cut the brow tines off. Don't have to worry about hitting my hands. You can, and it's almost as though you can really focus on. Yeah, they do. They don't, because they fold together. One fits inside the other almost. So, yeah, dude, that's just a quick tip. Something that, and it's almost become so normal to me that I don't even view it as unconventional anymore. It used to blow my mind. I used to feel so insecure about it and so scared about it. If I'm coming in for an evening set, now this is largely dependent on the set I'm walking into. But if the way a certain set might lay out, if I'm walking in on an evening set or walking out on a morning set, and I'm not in their bedding area, I'm not where they're living, but maybe it's a rut, a transition spot where I can catch them coming or going, I'm going to make a lot of noise going in and out. There's been times I've literally jogged and I've got a grunt tube in my mouth. I'm jogging, going, bleh, bleh. While I'm jogging, I've got horns, whatever. I hit a tree on the way by or rub a tree with the antler and then keep jogging and grunting, especially during the rut. It's amazing how many times I find myself 25, 30 yards from a buck because he's heard me coming. He was coming the other direction and we meet. And then first off, you have to also be paying very close attention because if you see him coming, you want to duck behind a tree. You don't want them to see you jogging. But anyways, that used to be so unconventional to me. I used to think what? I can't make noise going into my tree stand. But it's amazing the amount of times that I found myself 20 yards from a deer or even 20 yards from a bedded buck. They don't pay much attention to me. They don't get up and come at me, but they also don't, even flinch or take a look because they just think I'm a buck walking through the woods. So the amount of times that I have found myself inside of shooting distance at a deer has been incredible. Used to seem unconventional, but now it's a part of what I do.
Oh yeah, that's spot on the money right there. Like you said, I think, and this older guy who used to kind of teach me a little bit about hunting, he was just like a master of the woods, hunting with a recurve and a flannel and blue jeans. He told me that humans or predators, they're trying to be quiet, right? So they don't. If a deer hears something in the woods that they hear a twig crack and they just hear one twig crack, they're probably going to perk up a little bit and be a little curious as to what's going on. But, if they hear something that sounds like, a deer just walking and feeding, not trying to be quiet, why would they be as concerned about that? Because no predator is just going to come walking in on them. And if they are, they'll know they're there. So, I don't really know the deer psychology behind that, but I totally agree with you. It definitely, you can get a lot closer to deer that way. And the other thing too is like if you just walk left, right, like it's a pretty repeatable sound. Doesn't really sound like a deer. If you got to think about like four-legged animals and how they walk, right? So it's kind of like it's like a 1-2 kind of walk because you got front back as they're walking. So if you kind of try to sound like a deer while you're walking, yeah, you'd be totally surprised. You can walk right up on deer.
Also, if you think about if you've watched deer just function in the woods, there's been times where a coyote, like I've got 20 deer in the field in front of me, and I see a coyote coming through, and I'm like, crap, he's about to spread them all. And he just jogs by, and the deer don't even move. Like, they don't even think about him. But then there's times where if a coyote comes creeping by, he's stalking, especially if you're turkey hunting and you see him, like, and there's fawns and a mama, and like that, those deer bolt because that coyote is in a different mode. He's in kill mode now. He's in hunting mode, if you will. Same reason why there's so many times where I'm out hanging a tree stand or putting out a salt lick or whatever, and deer like walk up on me. I'm like, what the heck? Like, why don't you ever do that when I'm hunting? Again, because it's different. Like, you're not in that crouch mode. You're not in that kill mode. You're more just hanging out, making more noise, acting natural, and deer don't pay as much attention to it. So you're absolutely right, dude. I did a podcast the other day with Justin Spring from Boone and Crockett, and we talk about that very thing. He was like, how come a deer, I was talking about basically if you blow a property, like if I blow out a buck, how long does it take for that deer to go back to being normal and I can hunt him again? And he said that's kind of what he alluded to. He's like, a deer doesn't mark down every time a coyote's running through the woods and then never go back there again. But they do note those times where it crept up on them when they were in their bed. They do note those times where it came in and nipped at them, through whatever. And I was like, that's a really good point. He's like, if a deer noted every time they saw or heard a coyote in the woods, there's nowhere they could live anymore. So it really brought that into perspective of like deer do note different like traits that you are portraying, and if you're trying to stealth mode hunt them or not. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to go running through the woods smoking a cigarette, eating beef jerky and drinking dews all day and just and cracking dews open, and that's not what I'm telling you to do. But I am telling you, sometimes it seems unconventional, but making more noise actually helps you get closer.
Yeah. Don't go to the extreme. Definitely don't do that. But there is what you're saying is true.
So, what was that one moment where you tried something and you're like, this is stupid, and then it worked? Other than your brother banging a set of 160s together, what was that one moment where you're like, dude, I don't know, man, but it turns out it's exactly what you needed to do?
Yeah, man. So I'll tell you the story. It actually worked out on my biggest buck ever, right? So my biggest whitetail, which to some guys not super duper big, but my biggest whitetail is 151. And anyway, we had access to hunt this farm, and we shared it with two other older guys who hunted this farm. They were friends of the farmer. So, they had all the good spots, all the nice tree stand locations on the edge of the field. And we couldn't hunt those. We could just hunt the outskirts or the edges or whatever. And in the summertime, we had seen this really nice buck in soybeans, and I couldn't seem to catch up with him during the season. Couldn't find him on trail cam. No clue where he was at. So one day, it was first week of November. It was November 3rd, which is the day before. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go walk some real nasty drainages and just see if I find any sign in there. So there's this one little tiny finger of woods between two fields, and there was a highway at the back of it. And on the back of the highway is just more ag fields. So maybe 5 acres max. And there was no hardwoods. It was all just brushy, nasty stuff, right? And I'm like, no way there's going to be anything in here, but I got to walk in here anyway to check. So I'm like fighting through thistles and just thorn bush after thorn bush and honeysuckle and just trying to get through all this stuff. And I get back in there, and sure enough, I found a scrape. And I'm like, okay, like now my interest is piqued, right? So I find a scrape, and then I found a rub, and then I found another rub, and then I found another scrape. And I'm like, this is definitely like some nice big buck sign. And there was not really any other deer sign in this little area. And I was like, I could not put two and two together. But the sign was telling me that there was a big deer in this area. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to go for it. So the next night, I went in there and I brought a tree stand with me and I hung it on this little, I mean, it couldn't have been more than 6 or 8 inches around at the trunk. And I was probably only 8 feet off the ground in this little thicket. And I got in there and I hung the stand and I'm sitting there and all night long, it was November 4th. And I'm like, man, I should be seeing some action, like not seeing anything. And I was second guessing myself. I was so mad that I chose to waste my night sitting in this spot. And then right before dark, I heard a crunch behind me. And I'm like, okay. So I look over my shoulder and I saw tines coming through the brush like 100 yards away. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. I was probably only 200 yards from the road. So this deer was bedded, was laid up against the highway with his back and this little finger of woods. And then he was going down and then he was using that creek bottom to access the rest of the farm at night. So he was staying basically as far away from the hunting pressure as he could. And I saw him coming through the trees and he dropped down in this dry little creek bottom in between the two fields in this section of timber that I was hunting. And man, he popped up in front of me at like 8 yards and he stood there like stock still, looking directly under my stand and out towards the field for like 10 minutes. Didn't flinch a muscle. And I'm in the stand, right? And I'm just shaking like a leaf. I mean, I was like, it was a huge deer and, I was freaking out. And anyway, he ended up not smelling me somehow. And he walked up and at like 8 yards, he made a scrape. And as soon as he cleared the tree, I shot him. And yeah, he only went like 100 yards. And he was the only deer I saw that night. But it was totally just like the nastiest, gnarliest area you never think a deer would be living in. No anything nearby that would even make sense. And sure enough, that's where the biggest buck on the farm was living. And I ended up killing him on a hanging hunt set. So, I mean, it was a crazy thing, but it just happened to work out for me, and I just trusted my instincts, and it worked out.
Well, and that just goes to show you too, like boots on the ground is invaluable. Like I'm a massive proponent of Onyx and, looking at aerials and figuring out, where pinch points are and where deer are crossing here or there, or where, bedding is, food is, water is. But nothing substitutes boots on the ground and going, oh, dude, there's a buck here. Like there's a buck that lives right here. So definitely don't neglect, getting out and getting boots on the ground for just looking at a map. And because there will be times you look and you're like, that's just too thick and nasty. There's no deer in there. And then you get in there, sure enough, there's deer. So definitely boots on the ground is cannot be substituted. What all hunts you got coming up this year? You headed home to Kentucky? You hunting anywhere else, or what tags you got? Where are you hunting?
So I'm just hunting Montana this year. We have some other stuff lined up, potentially North Dakota for next year, potentially Indiana for next year, and maybe Kentucky. This year, we kind of put all our eggs in the basket of a big elk hunt out in Montana. And the guys are going to come out with me, and they're going to hang out for roughly a week. We're going to just hit the hills hard, try to get a big bull on the ground. And then, yeah, I've got a pronghorn tag, obviously, which I'll be trying to fill. And then also my deer tag here in Montana. So I'll be hunting Montana, but, I have at least those three. And if I'm lucky enough to fill all of those, then I'll go out for fall bear as well and try to knock down another black bear.
That's awesome, dude. I really want to hunt early season Kentucky whitetails. I love velvet deer. I actually just got back one from the taxidermist that is just incredible. But I just love velvet, and Kentucky's one of the best places to kill a big old velvet whitetail. And so I actually had a hunt kind of lined out for this year, and stuff just didn't work out and stuff didn't line up in time. But definitely on my radar to go try and kill a big velvet whitetail in Kentucky.
It's a magical place, and I think it kind of gets. I mean, I don't want to burn any states here, but this isn't any information that you couldn't readily find. But I think Kentucky is, one of my ideal deer hunting states, especially like you said for velvet whitetails. It has the perfect mix of ag, of hardwoods. You're not hunting 300-acre ag fields with little bitty edges. Like, you have a great mix where you're in tight with the deer. And there's always a chance pretty much anywhere in the state you have an opportunity at a 200-inch whitetail. So yeah, it's an awesome magical state. I love hunting Kentucky, and I hope I'm able to get a velvet whitetail. I've never even had the opportunity, but it's the place to do it for sure.
Yeah, and it just opens up. I think, what is it, 1st of September every year? September 1 every year?
Yep.
It just gives you a great amount of time.
Oh yeah, no, you get a ton of time, and you can hunt them till, most states you've got like the first day, right? That you might, if you have a September opener, if it's mid-September or whatever, by that time, odds of seeing a velvet buck are next to none. But in Kentucky, usually, you have that first week or maybe that second week as well of bow season to get it done. So it's not like, make or break on opening day getting a velvet whitetail. There's definitely plenty of opportunity. So, it's an awesome place to hunt, and there's a lot of big ones there.
Yeah, my season opens here on the 11th. And so, I've actually got a couple deer, which my properties here in Kansas normally are rut properties. Actually, the one property that I have a couple deer nailed down in daylight every day, I've never had a buck outside of like October 30th, October 28th. I've never had a deer outside of that time. And this year I've got 4 or 5 bucks like coming in during daylight on a daily basis. And I'm like, man, what has changed? Well, I know what's changed. New farmer, and they are doing Milo instead of winter wheat. So it's just holding deer earlier and keeping them better. And so, no, I'm actually pretty stoked because September 11th, you could kill one still, holding on to some velvet. So I'm pretty excited, pretty stoked to get out there. They're still holding velvet right now. So a couple of them have stripped off a little bit, but yeah, should be a good time for sure.
I hope you get one, man. Kansas is a special place.
Oh, it's frustrating, but it's fun for sure. What bow are you shooting right now? Walk me through your setup.
So right now, I'm shooting the Whitetail Legend Pro with the Hitman stabilizers. I have the 12 and the 10-inch kit, and then I have the Trophy Ridge React Trio Pro, and not the digital, just the mechanical. And I have the Hex Light quiver on there, and really, dude, it's just a dialed-in setup in my opinion. And I'm also running the Sync MD drop away from Trophy Ridge as well as my rest. Yeah, man, I absolutely love that bow. I have a new bear in a box right behind me that I'm probably going to set up this weekend. So I don't know. It'll be kind of tough to beat the Whitetail Legend Pro, but I always know that bear, they always outdo themselves. So I mean, I'm really stoked about what's new, but also, this Whitetail Legend Pro, man, it's really hard to beat.
Well, and that's what, they always outdo themselves at that mid-level $500, $600 price range. And I want to take a moment to hit on this because I had a conversation with some of the guys at Bear this week, and we all felt this way. While Bear offers you the very best bow that you could ever get for $600, $500, $650, whatever bow you're talking about, while they do offer the best bow that you could ever get at that price range, a lot of people have tried those bows, and that's their only perception of Bear. So then when they go to buy a flagship, they want to spend $1,200, $1,300. They're like, the bears aren't that great. Well, you shot a bear that cost $400. Like, you shot one of their mid-level, entry-level price point bows. Their flagships will 100% absolutely compete against any bow you want it to compete against. My Execute 32 will shoot against any other flagship bow on the market. Now, will you still choose another bow over bear? Possibly. I mean, that's personal preference. There, another bow might fit you better. But with the technology that Bear is putting out on their new flagship bows, they will every bit of compete against any bow you want to compete against. So I just want to encourage you, if you've tried a bear in the past and you're like, yeah, but they're just not that great, don't let a budget level or an entry level bow completely determine your thoughts towards a bear bow. Get out and try the Execute 30. Get out and try the Execute 32. I promise you, it will change your mind about bear. But also, if you go with something like the Alaskan or the Legend XR or the Whitetail Legend Pro, if you go with one of those bows, it is the best bow for your money at $600, $500, that mid-level price point. It will shoot anything you want to kill. It will shoot any distance you want to shoot. I mean, I've seen you shoot your Whitetail Legend Pro out to 100 yards, 110, 120 yards. It'll shoot whatever you want to shoot. Chuck Adams is killing world records in Alaska with his Alaskan bow, which is a mid-level price point bow. So while, yes, Bear does absolutely dominate that mid-level bow, you've got to try their flagship bows out. You've got to try their top-of-the-line bows out because they will perform with anybody you want them to perform against. Let me change your whole world here for a second.
Go ahead.
Did you know that you can order one of the dovetails for a Dovetail Pro and put it on your React Trio, and then you've got a React Trio on a dovetail? It's phenomenal.
I just got one in the box. Caleb from Bear, as you know, guy's awesome. And I texted him and I was like, hey man, can we make this happen? Because I love the dovetail setup, especially just being, as much as I shoot and take my bow in and out of a case and whatnot, I like the dovetail, being able to take my sight on and off. And like, can we make this happen? He's like, oh yeah, no problem. We have that already, set up. It's easy. He's like, I'll make sure we can get that set up for you. So I just got one. I'm going to set it up on my Trio Pro, and I'm really excited. I think it's going to make that even better. Those sights, man, they sight in like all of 5 minutes. I mean, it takes like 3-4 shots and you're good to go. So even adding a dovetail on top of that, I mean, it's impossible to beat.
Yeah, for sure, dude. That is the React Trio Pro is my favorite sight. I don't shoot the digital either. I have, and it's okay. I will say I openly had my foot in my mouth on a video because I shoot the sight and I kill a deer with the sight, and I'm telling everything I hate about the sight. I'm like, this sight's garbage. Don't like it at all. And I name off everything I don't like about the sight. I like to be transparent and honest. If I don't like something, I'm going to tell you. And then I do a video with the guys from Trophy Ridge, with Andrew Hughes there from Trophy Ridge, and he's walking me through everything that I hated about it. And he's like, well, you can change that, right here. And I'm like, huh. And then I'm like, well, I hated this. And he's like, you can change that right here, right? And I'm like, oh. I'm like, well, I didn't like this either. And I'm like, and he's like, yep, that's right here in the menus. And I'm like, okay, I like the sight. Okay, right. It's great. Because what happened was, it was pretty dark when I shot my buck with it. And so I dialed the sight, and then I gummed to full draw, and the light is still on. The screen is still on. Yep. It was pretty dark. So I'm like, dude, I can't see. I can't see my pins because that little screen's on over there.
Right.
And so that was my main issue with it. And he's like, yeah, you just turn it off right here. And I'm like, huh, cool. So I tried really hard to badmouth the sight, but he said I could fix everything about it I didn't like. So
nice. That's awesome. Well, and two things that I'll say real quick about Bear is the reason why I like the mid-level price point bow from Bear. First and foremost, as an archery shooter, 99% of the time you are not going to outshoot the bow. your skills as an archer are what matter first and foremost. A lot of people complain, yes, better higher end bows can help mitigate some of those problems, but you're never really going to outshoot that bow. So take that in mind. And then two, if you get that mid-level bow, that $500-600 bow, well, then all of a sudden you can do what I did and get the Hitman stabilizers. You can get the React Trio Pro. You can get the Sync MD drop away, and you're still at like $1,100 for a fully kitted out bow with a 2 stabilizer kit, 4 arrow quiver, the quiver with a light in it, mind you. So you can be set up for like $1,100 and have, the nicest accessories, which I think in turn help you to shoot better. If you have a, $2,000 bow from, one of the other competing brands, and then you have, you don't have any budget left over to build anything, cool or get the nice upgraded equipment for actually shooting the bow. So, that's my opinion on that. If you get a $600 bow, and I mean, you can be in it $1,000, and I shoot in a 3D league here in Bozeman, very competitive, lot of big 3D shooters out here, and I only lost in the championship. I was the only bear shooter in my archery league. I came in second place, and it's pretty crazy. And all these guys, brand new, top of the line bows from all the major manufacturers. And, it's mostly about the bow, and how you shoot it and your skills as an archer. And then, so, if you want to have that room to upgrade, I don't think there's a better option than one of the midline bows from Bear, because they shoot lights out. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, dude. And that's what, it also infuriates me when somebody's like, oh, dude, wish I could afford to go on an elk hunt. And I'm like, no, look at their setup. And I'm like, you've got a $4,000 setup there. Like, if you wouldn't spend $4,000 on your bow, you could go on more hunts. Just letting you know that. And I like to just throw that out there. I'm like, you do know that not too many years ago, in the scheme of humanity, not too many years ago, they were still shooting bows that they carved out of a tree and sharpened rocks into broadheads, right? And they were killing deer just as much as we do, if not more, because they actually had to live off of them.
Right.
You know that, right? And they're like, yeah, but if I can do it more effectively, why not? And I'm like, well, dude, I promise you that any bow, if I shoot a deer at 20 yards, any bow is going to kill them. Dude, my wife punched through 2 deer last year with her little legit, little the most beginner package you could buy. And I say does, you're like, well, yeah, but I'm shooting big bucks. Dude, her second doe weighed 220 pounds. Like, most people don't shoot bucks that weigh that much.
Yeah.
And she punched through it. And I'm like, that's literally a $400 setup set at 40 pounds and a 25-inch draw weight. And she's punching through it. Prioritize your arrow. Run a heavy arrow with good FOC, a sharp cut-on contact broadhead, and that bow will do you. Like, now, you're right. Like, I can upgrade, and yeah, I can shoot better, quieter, faster if I go up to the Whitetail Legend Pro, and then I can shoot better, faster, quieter if I go up to the Execute 32. But like, at what point am I, like you said, I'm never going to outshoot the Whitetail Legend Pro. Never. So there's a lot to be said about that, man.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people. It's just like, in the hunting culture these days, man. It's just like, it's all about, oh, what's the most expensive, the newest, the shiniest thing. And it's like you said, man, people were killing lots of animals with sticks and rocks not long ago. So, it's just crazy to me. And like, I killed my biggest buck with a Bear Apprentice, at like maxed out at like 50 pounds with like a 3-blade Rage and a Cabela's arrow. So like, it's all about, getting out in the woods, practicing with your equipment, being the best you can be with the equipment that you have, more so than it is, having the shiniest, brightest thing, like you said. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. There's no barrier to entry, really, with archery hunting. Like, any bow that you get, and like you said, your wife's legit, plenty deadly. So like, get out there and put some bows in your hands. And, I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I don't know about being able to get into archery. I'm like, man, you can you can literally go to, a big box store that carries, a bear bow or whatever, and you can get one of their ready to hunt packages. I mean, $4.99, $500. I mean, you could save up for that over the course of a year if you had to, and be able to get out there in the woods and have a bow that you can take on a hunt and feel confident about that it's going to hit behind the dot. So that's what I always tell people. Like, don't let that be something that stops you from archery hunting. You don't need $3,000 to get into shooting a bow and putting meat in the freezer. Like, you can do it. And you could even get on Craigslist and search, those same bows used and get them for even cheaper. So, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I try to tell people, don't let that stop them from getting into archery hunting. It's really low barrier to entry.
Yeah, 100%, man. When I was in college, I started working at a really big bow shop, a really prestigious bow shop, if you will. And I was shooting a Bear Charger, which, if you remember those times, that was a budget entry-level bow. But I was shooting a Bear Charger, and I was shooting it lights out. But some of the guys in the shop were making fun of me. Oh, you shoot a bear, dude? That's a budget. That's an entry bow, bro. When are you gonna get serious and get this other bow? And so I saved up, and as a college kid, dude, I spent money. So as a college kid, I was buying a bow that cost $1,400, and I was putting accessories on that cost another $1,000, and arrows that cost $200. And I went out shooting it, and I got it all sighted in, and I started shooting my buddies. And the very same guy that made fun of me looked at me and said, "You do know that you were shooting the other bow a whole lot better, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I do realize that." And so I literally, after like 2.5 weeks of trying to shoot this bow, I sold it and went back to the bow that cost $400, set up, ready to hunt.
Yep.
And now, could I have learned with that bow? Could I have adapted and figured out what that bow liked and what I was doing different? 100% I could have. But what I mean to say is this: there is no substitute for learning your equipment. And if you spend time learning your equipment, whether you spent $400 or $4,000, you can shoot that bow really, really well, really effectively, really accurately, and kill stuff with it. But you have to learn your equipment. That's what it comes down to.
Totally, man. It's like some people too, they jump into, they have target panic with an index release, and they're like, oh, I need to shoot a thumb button, or, oh, I need to shoot a hinge, or I need to shoot a back tension. And before they ever really learn how to shoot their index properly, then they jump down the rabbit hole because they think that cures the problem. And, I always tell people that, like you said, learn the equipment first, learn how to shoot, the base level that you have, become a master at that, and then move up, and then you'll always have that skill instead of just trying to mitigate the problem by getting the next newest piece of gear. You know what I mean?
100%, man. And I used to be that really bad, like, crack addict gear junkie. Like, you see a new bow released or a new sight release, and you're like, holy crap, I need it. And then you buy it, and it's like the middle of the rut, and you're trying to change sights and rests because you think it's all of a sudden going to make you a better archer. And then you're trying to sight your bow in the headlights of a pickup so you can go hunting the next morning because you had to change sights. I've been there, dude. It's like a crackhead. You're sitting there at midnight just thinking, I need to shoot my bow. But that's not going to help me. Spending time I shouldn't say it's not going to help me. It will help me. But what's going to help me tremendously is spending time with my equipment, learning what it likes, what it doesn't like, what arrows tune well for it, what broadheads shoot well for it, what makes that bow just a touch quieter. If I take a couple twists out of my cables, does it make it just shoot that much sweeter? Figuring out what that bow likes and learning how to shoot that bow rather than always jumping around to the next greatest, best thing there is. Because, listen, I have spent some money, and I'm not talking about back in the day. I'm talking about a month ago. A competitor to Trophy Ridge dropped a new sight, and I'm like, I need to see what this is all about. And so I dropped some money, some real money, like more than we're talking about our bows cost. And you get it, and you're like, there's nothing innovative about this at all. The pins aren't that bright. The sight housing is not that clear, or the sight picture you get out of this housing is not that clear. It's not even that much lighter, which is their claim to fame. What is going on here? But again, they promote it as the next best thing, and it's going to help fix all your problems. So people are like, I need that sight.
Yep.
No, you don't. Like, just spend time learning your sight. Spend time learning your equipment, and it'll pay off, I promise.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt. Hit the nail on the head right there.
I tell people all the time, your bows are important. They are firing their projectile. But you should prioritize your arrows over everything else. Because at the end of the day, no matter whether you spent $400 or $4,000 on that setup, the only thing that touches that deer is the arrow and the broadhead. That's the only thing. So if you spent $4,000 on a setup, but you're still shooting a $20 dink broadhead that's going to bend on impact, doesn't matter what you're shooting. Doesn't matter how expensive your bow is. Doesn't matter how accurate you are. Tell you the truth, if your broadhead crushes on impact, doesn't really matter how accurately you hit it. Prioritize your arrow and learn your equipment.
Yeah, man, the arrow is a huge thing. Like I never even thought about that until I started I guess I started watching guys like John Dudley and some other guys back in the day when I was kind of getting into archery, and it was like definitely learn your arrow. And I didn't even realize, like, people were shooting these broadheads that the ferrule was snapping as soon as you hit, a rib bone. It's like, that's no good, So yeah, like you said, I like my arrow.
If your broadheads aren't reusable, there's something wrong. Like, if you view your broadheads as expendable, not expandable, expendable as far as I shot it, throw it away, there's something wrong.
Yeah, if it's the same material as a Coke can, you're probably not doing something right.
So that's my biggest archery tip for you today. Prioritize your arrows, prioritize your broadheads, and then learn your equipment. Don't think I've got to have the new best, greatest thing that has ever come to be. Now, I'm going to get a new bow every year just because I love archery. I love bows. I love tinkering with equipment. However, there have been times where I get a new bow and I just think, I'm going to keep shooting this one because I know it. I'm shooting it really well. I've got it set up perfectly. So I'm just going to keep shooting this one. But I still like bows. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. Learn your equipment, prioritize your arrows and your broadheads, and it'll all work out. Isaac, where do they find Midwest Madness, man?
You can find Midwest Madness on Instagram at midwest.madness. You can find us on YouTube. Just type in Midwest Madness. It's pretty, there's really no one else on there with that name, so pretty easy to find. That's our 2 biggest things, Instagram and YouTube. And I would appreciate the support. We're trying to crank out as much content as we possibly can. Archery content, informational content, and a good mix of funny, humorous content in there too. So that's where you can find us.
Now, I forgot one question. Why do you put your bow in the fridge?
Well, I think that's one of those things. If you guys don't know what he's talking about, you're going to have to go check out the Instagram, see what he's talking about. But yeah, no, the guys, they texted me and they said, hey, we got a funny idea for a reel. Do you care if we post it? I'm like, go ahead. And then I saw that reel and I was like, you definitely weren't lying. It was a little bit unique, but did pretty well. So I'm not gonna. I'll tell everybody if you want to know.
So what's the point of it?
You just got to keep it ice cold, man. You want to shoot good, you gotta keep that sucker cool. It gets heating up when you're shooting all those bullseyes. So
my bow, actually, my bow shop area is in the garage, and so she just walked in my office, so I got to be careful about what I say, but I spent some money on an air conditioner for my garage. And she's like, are you seriously buying an air conditioner just for your bows? And I'm like, well, sweetheart, we live in Kansas. It gets 110 degrees.
Yep.
You can't have my bows in the garage in 110 degrees. You'll have limbs blowing up. You'll have recurves, blowing up. You'll have limbs coming unlaminated like I have to.
Yeah.
And so I did spend some coin to keep my bows at least not 110 degrees. So, no, that's funny. I'm an arrow junkie. I can't help it. I love building arrows. It's my passion. I can remember growing up, my dad, for him, it was sitting there sharpening knives. He loved to do that. For me, it's building arrows. It's sharpening broadheads. It's fletching arrows. It's playing with arrow weights and FOCs and all that good stuff. I love going out in my bow shop and messing with arrows. A good friend of mine, Dan, he started a company called Arrow Junkie. First off, what caught my attention was the incredible looking apparel. If you don't like Sasquatch carrying a bow, dragging a deer, there's something wrong with you. But as an arrow junkie, he sells me all the equipment that I need to build my own arrows, from arrow saws, arrow squares, arrow jigs, everything that I need to build my own arrows. He's got all the fletchings, all the wraps, all the glues, everything, broadheads, fill tips, inserts, outserts, everything you need to build your own arrow. Also, he puts out some really good information on how to build your own arrows. Guys, it doesn't have to be difficult, and it really doesn't even have to be that expensive. You can build an entire arrow building kit for $400 or so. And then all of a sudden, you can build the best arrows that you can possibly have because you're building them yourself. You know them. You're putting the time and effort into them. So, guys, I would highly encourage you to check out Arrow Junkie for all your arrow building needs. He's phenomenal. They're phenomenal. Go check it out. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Isaac, thank you so much for coming on. You guys go check out Midwest Madness and everything they're doing. 3 incredible brothers, one a little better looking than the other 2, one a little more talented than the other 2. I'll let you guys figure out which one I'm talking about. But guys, thank you for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.